Well, it's December 9th, 2012, another homebrew day. And today I'm making a English mild, uh, also known as a brown ale. And I basically wanted to get back to doing a simple style of brewing. It's a very simple malt bill. There's only about 6 pounds of Maris Otter base malt in there, as well as maybe 3/4 of a pound of chocolate malt, and maybe about half a pound of crystal malt 60. And I'm also going to throw in just something because I love to try and, for me it's all about trying new things, and I'm going to throw in about 8 ounces or so of toasted marshmallow. And this is my brew area now. I'm in my own apartment now, and no longer have the luxury of being in my dad's old back tool shed with all the space and all the utilities. I basically have to improvise by running a garden hose from my kitchen sink. But I mean, it's nice, and I'm trying to kind of modify the process a bit. I have to keep open flames at least 15 feet away from the building, and people do get paranoid and they do complain. So, just trying to make sure today with today's brew, I'm going to make sure I carefully follow each step because I've had some problems in the past with some of the more recent brews that I've done under these conditions. But today, I'm going in with an actual thermometer that works, and a new hydrometer, since the last one broke. So, just right now I'm waiting for my temperature to come down to where I want it to be at about 169 degrees. Alright, so we're now at our temperature. I've already begun to put a little bit of water into the mash tun to get our water bed down so that we don't have any stuck sparging. Before I lose any more temperature, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. It's going to be hard to document all this because I am without my assistant brewer today, but we're going to try and be as thorough as possible here. Alright. So I've already begun mashing in, and I can tell you right now that just the aroma of the malt bill is superb. Those chocolate malts blending with the crystal, it's going to be a really nice, really nice beer. But it is a little cold outside, and I'm hitting 150 on my mash temperature. But it is cold outside, and I am afraid of losing a little heat, so I just went ahead and threw my strike water back onto the burner just to kind of give it another quick boost, so I can maybe hit around 152 instead of 150. Okay, so what I've done is I boosted my strike water up quite a bit higher than what it was, just to compensate for the cold weather. When I took it off, actually, it was darn near, now it's settling out at about 180, 185, just about, which is a little high, but I'm just going in at a trickle. And what's happening is, as that's mixing with the grains, which have sat outside in the tool shed here overnight, is actually balancing out. So right at about the mash temperature I want to get. Some spots are still at about 148, the others are right at about 150. Looks like it's safe to maybe turn this up a little bit. So, we're making beer. What you do is you take these grains that have been malted, you're mixing them with hot water to activate enzymes. Once those enzymes have been activated, they're going to start to break down some of the starches in the grain, and then we rinse those grains and collect all that sugar, in our boil pot, boil it up, which really helps, bring out out and enhance the flavors, and you let that ferment. So just want to make sure I'm covering all the bases for anybody who's only seeing this for the first time. Okay, so now my grain is entirely in, and you know, my temperature is still a couple degrees off of where I want it to be. Actually, almost a whole 10 degrees off of where I want it to be. So, you know, I want to play it on the safe side. In the past, I have actually gone in way too hot, came out with way too thick of a beer. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind being a little on the thin side here. And what I mean by that is, generally, the lower you hit your grains with, I'm sorry, the lower temperature you end up at, you end up with a thinner beer because the sugars have been broken down much smaller. You know, if you hit it with a higher temperature, those sugar molecules are left just a bit bigger. You know, leaving your beer with quite a bit more mouthfeel. You know, just a little thicker. So I just want to get this up a little bit in temperature. The gravity of this beer is really only about, once we, before we even get into our boil here, we're going to end up at about, you know, a 103.4 specific gravity. Generally, this beer should probably end up right at around, once we boil here, it'll end up at about a 103.8. And it could end up being close to like a 4% ABV. You know, the addition of the marshmallows might change that a little bit. Yeah, we're just going to let this sit right now for an hour. I have my watch on me. Give me one. Okay, so this is how many marshmallows I've done in the past 45 minutes or so. It would have been better if I had like a little mini blowtorch or something like that. But anyway, it is now time to get our sparge water going. Actually, I'm a little late on that just due to you know, having to toast marshmallows. But we have to get this up to 168 degrees. It says to use a little over 5.5 gallons of water. Well, slight problem. If you think your tank is running low, get a backup tank, because this one apparently seems like it's all tapped out. I don't understand what's going on. I thought it would have at least enough to get us through, but now I have to run to the gas station and get another tank. This doesn't want to stay lit. I'm hoping I could at least sparge before I have to do that. Okay, it's really nice when you live right across the street from a hardware store. And I also talked to our brewmaster over at Brew Kettle. Letting it sit in the mash tun for an extra 20 minutes or so isn't really going to hurt anything. You know, you might get a little more extra conversion, but really I think these grains are so modified, I think that you really can't get more conversion than already has happened. So it's fine. It's just sitting there. It's just being a good girl. That's all. So, anyway, yeah, it wouldn't be a brew day if something didn't go a little off kilter. So, I try to brew as often as I can, which isn't very often. You know, is to hone my skills and get better, not just get complacent and you know, lazy. So, you know, I had a nice little unfortunate but happy, you know, thing kind of happened where you know, I had no internet yesterday, so to kind of entertain myself, I just kind of went through some old videos, some old homebrew videos that I made, and really reminded me of, you know, a lot of the things that, you know, all the joys that I get out of brewing, and how I've kind of allowed myself to just kind of get distanced from that, just with, you know, just getting caught up in just the day-to-day grind. And you know, one of the reasons why I fell in love with the hobby of brewing, and now with the career of brewing, is because it forces you to stop and take careful consideration. You know, you have to get out of the grind. I mean, yes, you have to be part of it, but you know, you really gotta constantly keep your mind on something that you know, if you don't focus on it totally, you know, it can compromise the outcome. So I don't want that to happen, and I want my brewing to only get better. So yeah, I guess I don't really need to speak too much on it, but I'm happy to say that here I am, 2.5 years later. Feels like longer, but 2.5 years later from my initial introduction to brewing, and I work at a brewery. I'm the assistant brewer, and I am, you know, committed to making sure that I do all I can to learn as much as I possibly can, and make the best beer that I possibly can, and make this as fulfilling, not just for me, but for the people that are going to be drinking my beers. Alright, so again, we're just waiting for my water, sparge water, to come to 168 degrees. Still not near that yet. It's about 105 right now. And I really can't wait to start sparging. I really want to see what my gravity is going to be. I know this is terrible, terrible shooting. I don't care, because I'm never going to get to editing this. It's more or less just for my documentation. And I annoy myself just as much as anyone else who is watching this, believe me. So these are some of the, maybe we'll say, you know, mid-range runnings of the wort, and we're sitting there. Well, I mean, it still needs a chance to cool down a little bit. It's, you know, you're supposed to read it at about, you know, 65 degrees or so. We're sitting probably around 80 or 90 right now, but you know, our gravity is about, you know, 10. You know, the twist there. 104.2, we'll say, you know, for the compensating for the temperature, 105.0, somewhere around that. You know, 104.5. Here's the color of my beer. Now that it's finally coming out, we're just kind of topping off to get to our volume here. I'm gonna go ahead and shut that. That's where it's at right now as far as that color. And it's funny because, you know, when I shoot for a darker beer for a stout, I can never fucking hit the color. For the life of me, I don't know if it's due to, you know, some of the characteristics of the grains that go into a stout that I, for some reason, cannot hit that color. But in the case of this beer, I would venture to say that's almost a stout. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and top this off again. Blend all that up. We're going to take another reading. Okay, I just took a gravity reading. even though the wort was only chilled down to about 85 degrees, so we have to compensate for that. The warmer it is, the lower that hydrometer is going to sit. So we're actually almost dead on the money with where our gravity should be. We're looking for a 134 pre-boil gravity. The hydrometer reads about a 130, but I'm going to go ahead and say that once that temperature gets down to about, 70 degrees or so, 65 degrees, that hydrometer is going to read a bit more accurately. Whoops. Probably not a good idea to keep loose sheets of paper by an open flame. So, but here we are at our boil. Oh, not at our boil, but, in the brew kettle. And we're just waiting for this to come to a boil so we can add our hops. But, my battery was dying and I had some difficulty trying to talk about a couple things earlier. The color of this beer, although undoubtedly it is a brown, thank goodness, it's funny that it came out as dark as it did. I've tried really hard with some of my stouts. I get teased about it because I can't ever hit, that really nice dark stout color. Here I am just shooting for a brown and I'm practically, creating like a black abyss here. Anyway, let's go take a look at that wort real fast in our hydrometer sample. What it's supposed to be. But anyway, it's reading at about a 1030. Once we boil a bit, that's going to come up. And again, the temperature of this still slightly too warm. And if you look at the color, oops, the light there. It's a brown. It's definitely a brown. What I'm going to do is I'm going to taste a little of this. Yeah, it's going to be a sessionable beer. Not a lot of sweetness there. Well, we officially achieved our boil at 230, which is when I tossed in my first ounce of hops, which was immediately lost by a minor boil over, but significant enough to literally dump all my hop stuff on the bed of my truck. So, even though I was keeping a close eye on it, when you have such a small brew kettle, there's not much you can do to control it. Well, that's all right. Not much. I'm not really trying to achieve much bittering in this beer anyway, and those first hops are just for bittering. So anyway, once I believe I've achieved a hot break, and I boiled off some of this volume, I'm going to step away because I need to pee really bad. I think that was our hot break. See if I can't go through an entire brew day without the cops being called on me because some moron doesn't understand what I'm doing. Okay, small unforeseen problem here. It's beginning to sprinkle a little bit. If need be, I don't care what the neighbors say, I'm going to bring this whole operation underneath my patio. It starts to sprinkle any harder than this. But anyway, yeah, I think we're at about 6 gallons right now. Which says that after my boil, I should have been at 6 gallons. This brew pot only holds about 7, I think, up to the brim. So we'll see how that goes. As long as I end up with about 5 gallons, a little over 5 gallons in the carboy, I'm happy. And I'm just going to keep on toasting more marshmallows. I mean, this is a lot, but not that much. And no, I haven't eaten one of them. I've been tempted, but honestly, it takes so long to toast them up, I wouldn't want to waste more time. So I'm going to keep on toasting up here. and we'll get back once, maybe once I toss those in. Okay, so here we are. Got marshmallows in the beer at flame out. Just going to go ahead and dissolve those while we're still sitting at over 200 degrees, which is plenty to sanitize anything. The smell is phenomenal. Once those are dissolved, I'm going to go ahead and add my remaining hops. Again, we're at over 200 degrees, so I'm not worried about any sanitation issues just as yet. Also, utilizing the heat. Making beer, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
I was excited for the turkey, but the beer.
So, yeah. Smells really good here. Let's see. Also, yeah, I was trying to mention that with the temperature being as high as it is, I'm also hoping to, you know, just kind of get rid of any sort of artificial, not artificial stuff, but, you know, just any preservatives that may be in the marshmallows. I just want to go ahead and just kind of maybe deactivate those. I'm hoping the heat, you know, gets rid of that. Okay, so the marshmallows are dissolved. Does it really come through? Probably not. But, you know, I'm going to go ahead and just get a gravity reading here. Okay, so we've begun our chill down process, and we should have this down to pitching temperature in no time just due to the outside temperature. I've got my last edition hops in there. I've got the marshmallow in there. You know, does it really come through? I'm getting... Alright, we're almost at the final stage of our brew day, and this is one of the most critical parts of the brew day because we're chilling our wort down, which brings it to a dangerously vulnerable temperature. We want to do it as quickly as possible to get it to the right temperature to pitch the yeast without introducing it to any sort of foreign contaminants. What I believe happens here is, you know, there's no avoiding exposing the wort to the air, which contains contaminants. But, you know, once the actual yeast takes hold, it creates a culture and you know, will force out any other sort of, you know, microbes from taking hold. I want to get them close to, you know, the temperature that they're used to right now. So it is a little warm in here, but I wouldn't venture to say it's 80. I'd say close to maybe 70, 75. All right, so what I've went ahead and done is whirlpool my beer, meaning after it was chilled down to the proper temperature, which was, oh, I'd say close to 70 degrees, maybe 65. I went ahead and whirlpooled it, stirred it around, gathered any sediments that I possibly could in the middle. This is the new home of my toasted Marshmallow Brown Ale. Name still in progress. So how did my brew day go? Well, I have to assume that I hit my gravity correctly. Well, since I hit my gravity correctly and I basically hit all my parameters correctly, I have to assume this will be one of my most perfect beers to date. But, you know, there are a couple of variables in my process that I don't know if they'll be a factor or not. Right now I'm just drinking some of the wort that I just took from my hydrometer reading. My hydrometer readings were, my gravity readings were dead on, just about what I assumed. I mean, I should have gotten about a 138 according to this recipe. Um, but, you know, with the addition of marshmallows, I hit about a 142, which is to be expected, I think. Now, it's weird because, you know, the software assumes that I'm going to use, you know, a little more water. It assumes that I'm going to have to add water to the end of my boil. It assumes that I'm going to have to sparge with more water. I don't know if that's just something that I can correct in the software or what, but I find it funny that, you know, I follow my steps the way that that I know that my system can handle and end up with the same parameters that the software assumes I'm going to get. Anyway, judging by the wort, this beer is going to be malty. It's going to have a slight roastiness with some chocolate caramel complexities to it. The vanilla from the marshmallows only helps accentuate that, and you know, I do get a bit of the toastiness from the marshmallows. I'm hoping that it's going to ferment out perfect, and there's no contamination. The only thing that concerns me is the fact that I'm forced to use water out of a hose that runs from my kitchen, and it's a cheap, crappy hose that there's some kind of plasticky, phenolic smell that comes from this hose that you could smell. You know, it's very detectable. And I'm just hoping that, you know, if I'm using this water to rinse or wash out things or whatever, I'm hoping that it's not going to come through in the beer itself. It shouldn't, seeing as the last thing to touch anything I use is sanitizer, but the sanitizer is from that hose water. The other problem, and it's not so much of a problem, but it's a concern, is the yeast that I pitched came from a fermenter at the brew kettle for a beer called 4C's, a pretty hoppy pale ale. Now, mind you, from the fermenter, it's not that hoppy, but there is a distinct difference in the sort of hops that went into my beer and what was in the fermenter at the brew kettle. 4C's uses 4 different types of hops. There's a bit of a citrusiness that comes from that hoppiness, whereas mine, the Kent Goldings, is it's more of a spicy, sweeter, yeah, that's the best way to describe it. It doesn't have any citrusiness to it. There's no tartness, no anything like that. So, yeah, I'm really hoping that doesn't contrast too much with what I've got going on in my beer. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. I'm hoping it won't. It would be a shame. That is the frustrating part of a brew day. It's a shame you put forth 7 hours worth of labor, and not to mention all the prep that goes into one brew day, and you know, and it could be just completely derailed by one little mistake. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm happy. I'm confident that everything went well, and I'm happy that no matter what the results are, I'll be able to discern what took place to bring me to the results that I arrived to. All right. Well, paired with the fart that just came out of my ass. Hopefully what comes out of the fermenter is going to be very close to what is in this glass. Cheers. And happy brewing. We'll see you on the next video.